So Dee, I have a question for you. We were kind of talking a little bit earlier, and I know that a lot of people that I've talked to and we've talked to actually in this group or in in life in general, they tend to have either a negative aspect about them or they tend to have, in fact, actually the video I did the other day, that's kind of one of the reasons why I did it, when I said you kind of have to remember that things that are negative around you, they're happening around you, not to you.
Hmm.
Sometimes, and I know it can be hard for people to keep positive attitude, but I guess first of all, I have that question for you. Is it necessary to remain positive? I mean, is it something you need to do?
It it's really not. It's necessary when it comes to certain things, but nobody can be positive all the time.
Right.
I mean, that's just because that's just human nature. But to be, and it seems like it's so much easier to be negative most of the time, all pretty much all the time,
Right.
for
Right.
some people. And I'll be the first to admit I've been there. You know I've been there.
Yeah, I
And
think everybody has it sometime. I mean,
yeah, and I know you worked hard at helping me get through it. And I don't know, it seems like just all of a sudden it clicked, and I'm glad I'm not there anymore.
yeah.
And I see what you're doing, buddy.
I think it's interesting because we were talking about this a long time ago, or a while back ago, and I told you something that I found out when I was just watching Tony Robbins, because sometimes it helps to watch things. I mean, you get in a funk and you kind of got to get yourself out of it, and sometimes there's nobody to talk to, and you just kind of put something on. I like to have Les Brown yell at me in the morning. He gets me motivated, gets me going. But Tony Robbins was talking about an experiment they did, and I thought it was interesting. They had actors that one of the actors went out and he had coffee in his hand, and he would go up to these people, and it was in this certain area, and they would just ask, to hold my coffee, could you really quick, and he'd tie his shoes and then take off, and that's all they did, and they did this with like 100 people. Then they came back to those same 100 people. They had identified them already. They were, I guess, filming or whatever. They come back to those people and they asked them to read a story, and it was just a short little itty bitty story, and describe the character. And then they did the same thing with an actor that had something cold in his hands, like a cold Coke or something like that. I forget what it was, ice water or whatever. And the same exact thing, but the cup was cold. And from what I understand, if I remember correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the interesting part of it was that the people that had the coffee that was hot in their
Hmm.
hand described the character as warm, kind, loving, lots of
Yep.
positive things. And the people that had the cold thing in their hand described him as cold, harsh, cruel.
Yep.
And so really what you have around you, what you surround yourself with, or what you let influence you, can change even your aspect and your perception of others.
Yep. And that's something like we used to always tell the kids when they were growing up. Association is everything.
Yeah,
It makes you who you are. Who you associate with is pretty much who you become.
right. There's a phrase in Spanish that they use that it correlates with one in English, and you'll know right away. You'll tell me the one in English probably, but the one in Spanish is, "Tell me who you're with, and I'll tell you who you are."
Yep.
And
Yep.
I think it's a cool, the way they say it in Spanish. I think is cool. Is to tell me who you're with, and I'll tell you who you are, and it just kind of happens. But if you think about it, if you have this is my experience, and I don't know if you've seen the same thing happen, but my experience has been that if I'm negative and I'm in that negative funk, everybody
Hmm.
I talk to is negative towards me. I perceive them as being not interested,
Yep.
a hassle, people that aren't really cooperating, people that don't want anything. I struggle through everything I'm doing. I tend to drop things. I tend to not get the right temperature on the food burns if I'm making food. People are always driving too slow. Nobody wants to stop when they're supposed to. I mean, it's just like everybody's against me. But I
Yep.
don't know.
Well, and this is another thing that I bring up to people, because when we get into that negative state, negative or positive, it doesn't matter. When we get into that state, it affects our thoughts. And
Yeah,
no matter what we're thinking, that those thoughts will bring reality to us. whether it be negative reality or positive reality. It brings it to us. And sometimes it brings it faster than other times. But, you know, how many times, Jeremy, have you thought about, like, I'm going to go out and I'm going to get 5 people. I'm going to look for 5. I'm going to talk to 5 people today. And this is just the business we were in before.
Right. Right.
And you went out, but there was a thought maybe back there. I know this didn't happen to you because I've seen you work, but there was a thought maybe back there in the back of your head going, yeah, I'll be lucky to have, I'm going to put it on me. We'd go out and I'd say, I'm going to talk to 5 people today. But in the back of my mind, it would be, I'm going to be lucky to be able to talk to 1.
Yeah.
Because of being such an introvert. So what would happen? How many people did I actually talk to?
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, it's, you can say it, but if it's not really what you're feeling and what your real main thought is in your head, it's just not going to happen. So whether it be positive or negative, it works both ways.
Yep.
It's just, yeah.
You know what I did is I came up with, you're like, now I'm down, now I feel negative. No, you know what's kind of interesting? I came up with something a long time ago, and I was telling people about this. It has to do with dealing with other people, and a lot of people in customer service have an issue when it comes to dealing with people. They almost go into every call with a perception of this is going to turn out horrible.
Yes.
And it usually does
Yeah.
because of that, you know. So what I told somebody is I said, you know what, there are some people sometimes that have some mental or cultural challenges, even linguistic challenges. Maybe they don't understand the language or they don't understand what's going on. We tend to make excuses for them. So they could say something to us that normally would be offensive, and we'll think, oh, poor thing, they don't understand. Or poor thing, they don't know any better, right? And so it doesn't bother us.
Or in the South, it's bless their heart.
Yeah,
Bless
that's
their
right.
heart.
Pea picking heart. But you know what's interesting though is that I started doing the same thing. I started making excuses for people.
Yeah.
And it tends to help because instead of thinking, you know, that person is insulting, that person is doing this, that person's doing that or whatever, I always think to myself, poor thing, they need so much help and they don't even know it. You know, and it tends to bring, instead of being upset, it makes you feel more what's the word, tierno, like caring almost. It almost makes you compassionate. There you go, perfect. So,
look at that, I know Spanish and didn't know I knew Spanish.
so that's one of the things I would kind of share, I guess, with the group is that everybody has to deal with these things. These challenges are real. Everybody has these challenges, but you can make your reality by creating a mentality, and that mentality is all yours. You own it. It's almost like a little piece of soap somebody gives you, and you can shape it into whatever you want it to be. You're the artist behind your day. And so if you do something that Tony Robbins does, and I think it's interesting, within the first 20 minutes of waking up, Les Brown says the same thing. Think positive on purpose. Build your day a good day. Make it something that's going to start out right. And that's actually interesting that most people that listen to the radio on the way to work, what they hear are not songs. Usually it's like programs that are like things that are funny, things that'll make you laugh, things that they're talking about. Generally speaking, get people in a better mood before you get to work. It's so that you don't kill your coworkers, I think. Not sure.
I think it is.
But I think that if the group, you know, if anybody needs any help with that, if anybody needs any assistance with that, I know Dee, we've done a lot, even helping each other out. Sometimes you get in a negative spot and you need some help, and you know, hey, talk to me, get me out of this. But just some thoughts. Be positive. It makes a big difference. You can control it, even if it feels like you're not in control. You do have the control of yourself, not the circumstance. Yourself. Because
it all depends on what you're constantly thinking about. And you got to remember, Jeremy, when I was out there, who was with me? Where was my wonderful hubby?
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And see,
You know what thought came to my mind? Denny's.
Denny's.
Denny's. They had the most amazing every day. We would do that, right? As soon as I go into Yakima, I did, D, where you at? Let's go to Denny's.
Let's go to Denny's. But no, I had, you and I would get together and talk and plan and work things out. And I had Tammy, and I had Lucy, and I had Ito, and I had Patrick. But for the majority of the time,
yep,
the one that I needed to be with the most wasn't there. And I didn't realize how angry that I was with him. Seriously, until about a month ago.
Really?
Yeah, and that's where all my crap was coming from.
Isn't that when all of a sudden Dave showed up, like really a bunch of bruises all over the place, and he like had swollen?
But I finally got it out, and I even told him, I said, I didn't realize how angry I was at you, because we had sat down and we discussed everything.
Yeah.
Before he took that job, and I said, I really didn't understand how angry I was at you, but once it came out,
yeah,
I've been like a different person. Look, I laugh a lot more than I used to.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought that was all just because we were hanging out a lot. No, actually, it's kind of interesting, but the people we've been around, for the most part, it's a positive experience.
It is.
Everybody we've been with has challenges. And so I think being part of a group, there was one person that told me a long time ago, it's really hard for you to feel bad for yourself if you're helping others.
That's true. Very true.
If people, if you're having an issue, if you're having something you're struggling with, do as much as you can to reach out to other people in this group or outside to help them to be successful, to help them to talk to other people, to help them to save for their families, to save gold, to do whatever. Do something like that so that you're active. And the more active you get, even changing physiology, changing your face, it'll make a difference, and it'll make it, so you can go through. But we just wanted to get something out there really quick. So I'm going to go ahead and stop recording. But Dee, any last thoughts? Aside from the fact that I recorded without telling you?
I know. just be aware of your thoughts. Be aware of what you're feeling, and be aware of the thoughts that are going on in your head. And if you find that they're, like you said, we've all got issues, we've all got things going on, but if you're dwelling in that poor me thing, you're going to have a very hard time. Let's get everybody, let's pull out of it. Let's help people. You help people pull out of theirs, and then you'll pull out of yours.
Very nice. Awesome.